Good morning and welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to your May Talking Circle for NATRI. Today, we have a very special program that's not going to be how we had our talking circles in the past. But before we dive into that, we are going to review our disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to thank you all for coming here today. We are hoping that at the end of our talking circle today that we leave with a different understanding of the purpose and why we're here for our program, for our communities, and just for all of Indian country. And so I want to turn it over to Donna to get us started.
Hey, Ashri Shijri Donna Dotson Shaklua, Ashri Naisha Neely, Nigakatesni. Thank you all for being here. And I want to just tell our grantees that are here, thank you all for all of your hard work on your APR for this first year of this grant, our Native American Teacher Retention Initiative grant. I know it was a lot of hard work, and the first year is always hard as well. So instead of having a big data lesson at the end of May going into the summer, we thought it would be really nice and special to have some guests to join us today, just to speak on some amazing things that they're doing in Indian country and how they incorporate our cultural pieces of who we are. A lot of the times, especially here at the government level, we have they tend to compartmentalize us and put us in there. This is their cultural part. This is their language piece. This is their arts and crafts piece. This is their religion piece. We are all together. Everything that we have, our language, our culture, our dance, our games that we play, they're a part of us and who we are as Indian people all the time. They're not compartmentalized. That's who we are. That's how we learn. So I wanted to give some time for our special guest to just go through and show you kind of the things that they have done. And maybe you can incorporate whatever in your area, in your neck of the woods, into your school, into your kids, into your teachers to help revitalize, because we all need to be revitalized before we go into the next year. I go home back to Oklahoma to be revitalized. That's where I feel where I can fill my bucket up again. So hopefully you all enjoy our guest today, and I will turn it back over to Doris, who will introduce them.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Again, we hope that this is a good session for you. So I'm going to ask each presenter. As much as I would love to introduce you, I think it's really powerful if they heard it from you. And so our first presenter today that's going to be talking about his journey and just adding a lot of value to our space today will be Angela Ruiz. Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you feel comfortable enough, would you please introduce yourself and kind of just give our folks here today your introduction of who you are and what brings you here today?
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, so if it's hard to understand me, we sang a lot this past week and a half, so kind of recovering. But yeah, my name is Andrew Ruiz. I grew up on the Rosebud Reservation, kind of back and forth between Rosebud and Rapid City, South Dakota. Currently, right now, I'm a youth mentorship for this program. It's an after-school program called Octayapi. This past school year, last school year, I tore my ACL playing at Florida Southern College, and this is my second tear. So I decided to stay home this school year to rehab and then go back in August. So after the ACL tear, I got asked to coach the U12 youth lacrosse team. and it turned it up into creating a nonprofit, which we're officially a nonprofit now. It's called Great Plains United. And we're still finalizing the strategic plan. And but our goal is to give it back and bring it back to the reservations because it's not in our school systems over here. We're looking into bringing it to Rosebud, Ogallala, Coke Creek, all over South Dakota, all the reservations. Um, and we're talking about bringing it into the youth, starting from kindergarten all the way up to high school, but we want to start with the elementary schools, so they can grow into it. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and so yeah.
And I know today you have brought your uncle with us.
Yes.
Yes. Would you please introduce your uncle? And uncle, if you would like to share anything and what brings you here today, we would love to listen and just provide you some space for that as well.
Yeah. So like Jeremiah, his name's Jeremiah Morano. He was my lacrosse coach growing up. He's yeah. Can he introduce himself?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if he.
Hello. Um, I would like to first in Lakota way we have protocol. So when I just want to send some. It's called woke sape. It's just some encouraging words for you guys, and I just want to say that I'm really proud of my Toshka Angelo here and inviting me into your space here, the Muskogee Nation. And I love the stomp dance. It's beautiful, and I'm real proud to happy to be a part of it and seen it done. And in Colorado and in Oklahoma, went to some stomp dances and beautiful. Learned some stomp dance songs and beautiful way of life. Was fed real good. And thank you for sharing that part of your culture with me. And I'm gonna introduce myself in my language, and then I'll translate. Midaki epi chante washte na pe chuza pelo. Lakotia chaje ki hal kichita jika la hemielo hemacha. Chesapa miniluza ha. Ekta emata ha cha woashi echamukte cha. Lechel Chesapa Miniluzaha Oyushbaye Awatielo Cha Wawashi Chamunk de Central High School Wawashi Chamunk de Lo. Hello everyone, my relatives here. I live here in Rapid City, the heart of the Black Hills, and I'm from Denver, Colorado originally, and I work here at Central High School teaching Lakota language, and very proud of my nephew and very happy to be here in this space that you share with me today. Ho.
Thank you. I too just moved from Rapid City, and I would do anything to move back. And so it's nice to know that we have some Rapid City relatives with us today. Moving on, I want to also bring forward to this space Pete. Pete, an enrolled tribal citizen of the Muskogee Nation. Pete, thank you so much for joining us today. If you would like, I can read your bio, but I think today I think it would be powerful if our folks heard from our great presenters, and I would love for you to come into the space and share who you are and what brings you here today.
Absolutely. This J. Pete Kozer Jr., Momen Witkahatji Joseph Kiros, Momen Bikatela Dega Chogotako Estamanite, Momen Kisita Adowa Estamanite, Momen Jalaka Toyas J. I am Pete Kozer Jr. My ceremonial name is Witkahatji. and I belong to the Arbica ceremonial grounds and the Fox clan, and my tribal town is Casita. Um, Currently, I serve as director of the Muskogee Nation Scholarship Foundation. We are a 7871 charitable nonprofit under the Muskogee Nation. So in fact, we're getting ready for our 5K fundraiser next week. So this is a fundraising season. Additionally, the local community I serve, that I'm a part of, Jinx, is on the south side of Tulsa, and I serve as assistant coach of the Jinx High School boys lacrosse team. We had our big banquet last night. Good time to celebrate all our accomplishments throughout the year and in player development. Me personally, I've been a part of the both games. I started playing a long time ago, about 28 years, in the game of lacrosse in the 90s, and then just continuing up until present day. I've also played our traditional game with our ceremonial grounds folks, and you know, I'll get into this more later when questions or discussions, but as a part of what I do as an assistant coach with Jinx High School is that I do share where I come from and the intent of the game, both traditional and how it's reflected in the everyday, I guess, modern game, you would say. And work with the players, and they've grown to have a big respect for it. The specific group that I work with, face off midfield, they've gone to as far as wearing putting the Muskogee Nation stickers, the seal stickers on the back of their helmets. So that was a move that I really appreciated that they took forward, and they just embraced it. So my older sons are their teammates, and they learn a lot from each other, and be happy to share more. But I'll stop right there because I can go on and on. I am an educator too, so I'm going to relax for a second. Meadow, for your invitation. Look forward to the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so you have heard from three individuals in our community that have played lacrosse. And now I wanted to introduce another great presenter, Julia. Julia is a citizen of the Comanche Nation in the Kiowa tribe. And so, Julia, thank you for coming today. I know that you represent our universities, but also the great game of hand games. Am I correct? And so please let us know and fill the space with who you are and what brings you here today.
Yes, thank you. Ha ako down de babon. Joya aka ga latangia akia. University of Oklahoma agut agia obaha. Aho. Hello everyone. It's wonderful to see you all here. My name is Julia Guerrero. My tribes are Comanche and Kiowa. I am from Lawton, Oklahoma, and I am currently getting my master's in criminal justice at the University of Oklahoma. And I work as a research assistant at the OU Stevenson Cancer Center, and as well as help mentor undergraduate students within the Genomics and Ethics program for Native students, also known as the GEN program at OU. So I play many different roles, and that includes like guiding the undergrad students, whether it be to help networking at conferences or professionally develop with resumes, or just overall being somebody to talk to that's a little bit older than them while getting my master's. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here and talk about hand game. I love hand game, been playing since I was little. And I actually had the privilege of participating in the Crow Juniors Hand Game Tournament in Crow Agencies just last week. So my Oklahoma team got third. So didn't quite win, almost got there, but I'm definitely hopeful for next year and just overall happy to be here and talk about hand game. Thanks.
Thank you. And so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen just because I don't want us to be too formal. I think this is a very amazing space that we're in right now. So I'm just gonna stop so we can all see each other. So just to begin, I want to say thank you first and foremost for everyone here to bringing your name forward and allowing us to walk away with just a piece of you. I know that we're only able to see a piece of you today, so thank you for allowing us to hold that and honor that today. And so from what I hear of everyone here is that in some way, shape, or form, we're all touching education. We're either in the Oyate program, in our high schools, we're either coaching high school sports, we're either teaching in our schools, we're either in our university classrooms. And so in whichever form or way, my question to you all just to start us off today is, what does it mean for you to be Indigenous and still be in the classroom? How are you showing up in your classrooms? And kind of can you, because a lot of us that are here on the call, we're all in education in some way, shape, or form. We're either past teachers, we're either former teachers, we're either in a university. So to you, how do you show up as your Indigenous self in your classroom? And we can start with whoever feels compelled to go first, or if you want, I can call on folks.
I can start. God, I think that's a really tough question to answer, but growing up, I came from a military family, so I was often away, and we moved every like 2 to 3 years. So I didn't grow up around my culture, my song, my ceremonies. So oftentimes I only identified as a student, and it was very hard for me being away from family because in Native communities, Native families, it family means everything. Kinship, the bonds that you share. So in my classrooms, I felt like I didn't really have an identity to relate to. But as I came back to Oklahoma, that's when I really got into ceremonies and singing and being with family. And so I think oftentimes as Native students, we live in two different worlds. And if you're Native, you probably understand what I mean and what I'm talking about. And I also often like to bring up a visual representation of this, and it's having one foot on the pavement, on like the concrete, and then one foot on the grass. You are living in two different worlds. I'm the academic person. I'm the person that goes to school, work, and then I have to flip that switch, and then I go to ceremony. I go to play hand game. I go to sing. So it's often hard to navigate at times, walking between these two worlds. But I think it makes me stronger. And if there's one thing I appreciate more is having that, having it's often hard because you have to find that balance. But when you do find that balance and like kind of how Donna said at the beginning, she goes home to Oklahoma to fill her cup. And that's how I look at it. Having school, yes, I excel in school, but I also like practice hand game and traditional ceremonies to fill that. And I think that's just amazing that we have that. And it really just shows as natives that we're like really good at being resilient. And that's one way that I show up.
Awesome, thank you. Um, anyone else like to jump in?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Um, so my background, I was raised around I was really fortunate, and I was raised around language, and I was told I was put a big kind of like a big thing on my shoulders about what that meant for me and my people when they gave me the language. And it kind of put me in a situation where, and I know this sounds bad, but in my mind, it was like, then I don't want to be Indian, and I don't want to do this. Like, I just want to like do something else. And so like, my whole thing was like to get as far away as I could and become a doctor and get really wealthy and just live my life like every other person, I guess you can say. And I wound up going to Fort Lewis because that's what I could afford. And the opposite actually happened. And I got taken in by a lot of Danab people. I got taken in by some Hamas and Zia. And I started to figure out that I was part of something really beautiful. And I got my cellular and molecular degree. And the very first thing I wanted to do was go back to Oklahoma and teach in my language department. And here I was a cellular and molecular degree, and I was teaching Potawatomi language. But yet I still didn't make my mind up if I wanted to get into education, even though I was told my entire life growing up, like that was my Indian name. That's what I was going to do. I was going to get into education. I was still trying to run from that. And then I remember sitting in front of this really old Creek elder. And he was like, and I was really all over the place. My mind was all over the place. And he looked at me and he was like, "What do you want? Like, if you could ask for anything, what would you want?" And I remember telling him I want stability. And he said, "Just remember, that's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like." And I wind up getting pregnant, and I wasn't expecting it. And it put everything I ever thought I was going to do in a completely different direction. And it started to put my mind towards the youth and what I was going to do for the future generations. And I left everything. I was a medical lab technologist. I was about on my way to getting an MD PhD. I left it all and I became a teacher. And I actually wound up doing everything I never thought I was going to do. I was in the classroom, and it was such a heavy experience seeing the youth in front of me, seeing me in them, and seeing that mirror of everything I was trying to disassociate from, all of my trauma, all of the stuff that happened to me. They were like a mirror for all of that stuff. And what they taught me was how to be a better person, how to dig deep and to heal, and how to be more vocal and stand up for them and learn. And it was really because of being a teacher, I am the person I am today. And if it wasn't for the youth doing that for me, I would not be the person I am right now. So it's my kids, it's my not biological kids, it's all of them. And so when I wind up leaving the classroom, it was really, really hard. And it's still hard. It's kind of like a place I'm in when I became a curriculum developer. And now I'm in the situation of being an education director at the university. But I still feel in my heart that that is going to be the main goal, is going to be the youth, and how do I do what I can for them so that they can also have opportunities like I had to really come into themselves and self-actualize and be the best versions of themselves. And so that's all I want to do now. And I'm really grateful for my kids, because that's who put me on that path. And I'm really grateful to be Native, because I don't know of, my great grandma used to tell me all the time, you got to feel sorry for people who aren't Native. And I used to be like, what? Like, but as I get older, I'm like, I kind of get it now. And like, this is like the biggest gift I could have ever been given. And it's a blessing. And I'm so grateful to be here and helping in some capacity or any way I can. And I didn't feel that way for a long time. And now I do. And I'm grateful every day. So that's all I want to say. Women.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And just thinking more about that, I wanted to ask, especially you, Jeremiah, I know that um, you coach lacrosse, you coached your nephew. And so I guess my question, and to you and Pete as well, I know you guys both are coaching and you guys are raising young minds. You're literally raising our next generation. How does how does our medicine game and who we are as Native people, how does that play in how you coach? Like, I know it feels like a straightforward question, like, well, duh, like we're indigenous, we're native, we're gifted this game to play back. But I guess for folks here today that don't know the medicine game as much as, we know it, how does that impact you as an indigenous person shaping young minds?
So while I do coach, I have a heavy non-native presence. It's South Tulsa, right? So there are a handful of native kids on the high school team. So it kind of goes back to knowing your community and protocol, because at the same time we still have to be very protective of our spirituality and what we do back home. And so we have to kind of sit back and think about, well, what's appropriate, what's not, what can we communicate to these kids, how can they understand. It's we're educators, we tend to overthink a lot, right? So one of the things that growing up was taught to us is that when for our game among the Muskogee people, there's the medicine aspect, and then there's the little brother of war, hopefully a Josie, right? So that's to prepare for war and train and things like that. I had to let my players know it's warriors were not always preparing for warfare. I mean, they had to be ready to go, but at the same time, who were warriors? Where I'm from, they were the first to help out elders, first to chop wood, the first people there, the last ones there. They were seen to be among the community's biggest helpers, and so that's all a part of being a warrior. And then when I talk to the players about the game itself, lacrosse, and how there's still a large spirituality aspect to it, I said I reminded them that the Six Nations that presented the game that we play, there's still a lot of spirituality behind that, and that both, whether it's Muskogee Nation or other tribes with their game and their spiritual game, as a part of it is developing character and leadership. And so whenever we talk about those aspects of being a warrior, and when I work with young men, I said that's to develop your character, that's to develop yourself as a man going into the next steps, chapters of life. And so we last night's banquet, we kind of got to highlight that. We have a award called Hoya Bokicholgi, and it means lacrosse player, but it's not necessarily reflective of skill and how many points you've made and assists and things like that. It's not real stats related, but it's about character, leadership, commitment. And we got to highlight those players who might not get a lot of field time, but they're the first ones there, the last ones to leave. They're constantly asking their questions to the coaches. They're constantly trying to get better. They're taking care of their teammates. They're helping out their teammates and stuff like that. So in relation to the spiritual game, the traditional game, that's what it's made for. That is its purpose, that we have it here in 2024. And so when I communicate to the players, I said, hey, you got to take care of this sport just like you do anything else, because there is a spirit in it. And so you continue to work with those players, again, very heavily non-native folks. But this took 2 years, but it was a constant reaffirmation, and also remembering that they're developing as students as themselves. And so kind of tying back to your previous question about classroom and approaches, that's where my identity as a Muskogee, also Choctaw and Chickasaw on my mother's side. I carry that, try to reflect it, try to be the leading example, and so that be a positive mentor. So there's some quick thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much. If you're able, Jeremiah, I would love to hear how that is showing up in your life, especially in Rapid City when, Rapid City has such a high population of native students, but also a lot of non-native tensions happen there as well. And just wanting to learn more about how that comes up in your classroom with the game of lacrosse.
Ooh, so I'd like to acknowledge Pete and very honored to be asked upon to talk about this stuff. And Coach Pete made some very strong points that I'd like to piggyback off. So my role is in the classroom for educational purposes. So I have a lot of high school and college students that are here in Rapid City. There's a high population. There's about 25,000 Ocheti Shakowee people here in a city of only 90,000. So we make up a good portion of the, and then off the city limits, there's nine reservations that are very close. 4 reservations that are within 1.5 hours to 3.5 hour drive to this, and it's kind of like the Mecca. We come here to get groceries and stuff, and that's another topic, is food sovereignty. But my role is education. See, in a classroom, I have majority Lakota students, Ocheti Shakowee background. On the field, though, there's it's not, the game of lacrosse isn't as popular in our communities as we want it to be, and that's kind of Toshka Angelo's role, is to make it more enticing and accessible, because we don't have a accessibility right now to the game. And as far as the players go, yeah, there's the majority of the players that we coach in the city are non-natives, but when we travel, the majority is natives. So advocacy is the approach that I think we all take as native educators or coaches, right? So if they're non-Indian, one of the things that we express is that the education, the historical aspect is very important. So the game was illegal. It was illegal to play if you were Indian in this country and in Canada. And up until 1978 here in the States, the game was illegal to play on the field. And in Canada, it's the same. That's why the Haudenosaunee, the Six Nations, they became so good at the box game, because it wasn't as illegal in the 80s. Even in the 80s and 90s, I know one of the Hall of Famers who played for the Bandits, his name was Barry Powles. He came to our Sundance ceremony of ours, and he brought some lacrosse sticks, and he played lacrosse with some of my boys when they were younger. And it was an interesting thing for him to talk about and express that they couldn't step on a field because they're considered professionals. And even that's why he played the box game. So even in the 80s, after it wasn't illegal, it was still frowned upon to be Indian and playing the game. So this is crazy. Not a lot of people acknowledge this aspect of the game. And that's important for non-natives to know so that they can advocate for us, being like, hey, wow, this is for every one non-native I explain this to, hopefully they'll explain it to 4 or 5 other non-natives so that this is getting around, right? So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the medicine aspect. And see, we don't have just one game in our culture. In the creation story, we're given 16 games by the spirits of creation when we were being created in Wind Cave, which is here in the Black Hills as well. And Dagapsi Chana, that's what we call it, the game of lacrosse, was one of them. And there's a beautiful story that's told about the game. And the rabbit is so fast, but he's so small, right? So another aspect, another thing I wanted to touch base on is that we also played this game on horseback. And so it was kind of like polo. So we had longer sticks and we were able to, and it like Tahashi, cousin Coach Pete said, it was used to prepare our youth for the outside world, right? So they're at an interesting point when they're becoming adolescent and young adults, is that they need to prepare themselves for life. And these games were a part of that. They're a part of building their character and their personality and using the values. We have 7 values in Lakota culture: knowledge, generosity, compassion, humility, patience, bravery, and respect and honor. And the Lakota language, there's words for all of these, and they mean a lot more than just words, though. It's about being a good relative to each other, a good human being to your neighbor. And these things, all the games that they kind of used to prepare our young ones for being out there in the world and giving back to their communities as well. So like Toshka Angelo, he told me one time, he said, Lexi, when I make it to the big leagues, I want to buy you a nice house. And I said, no. That's not being Lakota. Being Lakota is being successful, going out there, but coming back to give back to your community where you started. And that's what he's doing with his nonprofit. And I'm very proud of that. And then moving on to the next notes I was taking, development. So I guess medicine and the development are both came together in that little sequence. The fourth one is the classroom approach. And so my classroom approach is the historical factor. Our people were hunted and persecuted with their lives for some of our games. My grandma talks about playing, I heard a Tojan talk about hand game, and our people here in this territory were hunted, and there had police that would patrol the reservation on horseback and wagon, and they were allowed to enter the home. They're allowed to enter the home, and their homes were searched. And if anything was found, lacrosse stick, hand game set, bow and arrow, the family would be persecuted, sometimes, a lot of times, by death. They call it lynching. These are things that aren't talked about in the classroom in non-native teachers and coaches. And so it's very important to us to advocate for this historical aspect of all games. And we fought a very long and hard battle to get this legalized. 1978, the American Freedom of Religion Act. You know, I make all of my students recite and write down and type up all of these dates that are crucial to our existence. If we didn't have these, they wouldn't be here today. And if we didn't have our ancestors advocating in the for us in Washington, you know, who knows where the game would be now? Maybe it wouldn't be Indian no more. You know, these are the important points that I wrote down as I was listening to Tahashi, Coach Pete talk, and I was very thankful. And a lot of my points that I wrote down and came across were to back him up, because I believe in what he's doing. I believe in what Angelo is doing as well. So, ahu, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And to piggyback off that, you two mentioned that, you know, our games, especially like lacrosse, stickball, and hand games, yes, there's a medicine aspect of it, there's a spirituality aspect of it, but you both talked about, you know, they're set to shape us and go out and be good relatives, be good leaders. And so I ask Angelo and Julia, as you are entering into when you are in college, you know, these universities, these places that were not built for us. They were not built for our people. They were built to keep us out. We weren't even supposed to be in, you know, these institutions. How has your upbringing playing these games, how does that impact you as a student in these predominantly white institutions? Both Jeremiah and Pete talked about, you know, these leadership skills, these life skills. When you're walking these hallways in these universities and you're interacting with teachers, whether they're native or non-native, do you see those teachings come up in your day-to-day? And if so, like how do they show as your Indigenous students in the universities?
Is it all right if I go first, Julia? Okay, yeah. So growing up, like she Jeremiah, he warned us about that. He told us that Takopsich and playing it, sorry, playing it, you know, it's preparing us for the real world. So back then, it used to prepare the young warriors, you know, the youth, you know, for the battlefield, the war field, you know, because it's so physical. You know, people would die playing it. And so nowadays, you know, we adapted. He said that as being Lakota, you know, being native, we're really good at adapting. And he said that being good at adapting, you know, Takasi Chana, you know, it's physical, even nowadays, you know, playing the modern way. Um, he told us that, you know, since it's so physical, you know, you get hit, you know, the refs are not going to call a call. You know, we had racism and stuff, you know, growing up, you know, we didn't get the right calls. There was injuries and all kinds of stuff, and we get upset. And he will always remind us to, you know, play with a clear mind, be respectful, and, you know, just kind of move forward. Because if you don't learn how to control your emotions on the field, if you learn how to control your emotions on the field, you know, through all that, you know, when times get really rough, you'll be able to control your emotions in the real world, you know. So like me being at college, you know, experiencing all that kind of stuff. And I can kind of touch about what Julia was saying earlier. I relate to that a lot, you know, being away from your culture, ceremony, song, you know, singing, you know, that it's tough. I didn't realize how hard it was. And what I had while being home was like, you know, you don't realize what you have until it's gone, you know, until you're not around it. And so, yeah. And so, yeah, seeing that at school, it was tough. I feel like my Lexi, and all my mentors and people that are in my life. Lacrosse gave a lot to me, and I feel like they set me up pretty good for, the real world, being at school, getting my education. I went to school my first 2 years in New Jersey, 11 miles right outside New York City. So that was the whole experience coming from the res in Rapid City. Then then I transferred down to Florida. That's a whole nother one too. So yeah, I know I honestly think that they gave me the tools to be successful. They taught me how to pray, make prayer ties, continue to sing. And, he always reminded me, like I remember one time I called him and I was telling him like, I was going through a tough time. And I was like, oh, I want to go to Sweat. I need to go to Sweat. I need to go to Sweat. I need to go to NEPI. And he told me that, you don't need those ceremonies to, pray and be heard. And that kind of changed my perspective, and it made me think, anywhere I go, your prayers will still be heard. They still hear you. So yeah, and then I kind of want to touch a little bit on what like she and Pete were saying. You know, the way I kind of go towards teaching the youth. We focus on these three things. It's be respectful. Like Pete was saying, that the lacrosse stick, the game, it has a spirit. So you respect your stick. There's a lot of people that are non-native or people that are, uneducated, that I see them like throwing their sticks around, kind of like treating their gear and all their equipment like crap. And it like hurts me seeing that. I was always told, your stick has a spirit. Sometimes when I was younger, I even name my stick. You know, I'll take care of it. I'll clean it, all my gear and everything. Be respectful. Like, so when we go to lacrosse tournaments, you see like where the team was standing on the sidelines. When they leave, there's garbage. They leave water bottles. A lot of garbage. And our like she would always tell us, when you come to a place, you leave it better than when you came. And so that really stuck with me. It made me realize a lot, because you take care of that. You take care of that area. You take care of what you might call grandmother Earth. And so being them respectful to the opposite team and the refs, if they're not going to call, everything's not going to go your way. They're not going to call something, you get hit in the neck, it's considered a slash. And they see it, but you call them out. They're not going to, oh, you're right, pull the flag. They're not going to call it. So just be respectful to everyone. Yeah, that's like the number one thing. Then play with a clear mind, going back to like, your emotions on the lacrosse field. If you learn how to, when there's chaos on the lacrosse field, if you learn how to control them, it will set you up to be, better out in the real world. And so if we teach that in them young, because they're U12, there's a lot of hormones. A lot of hormones are changing. They're still learning how to control their emotions. Some of our players will come off crying. We'll ask them okay if they need anything, and and then if they don't, they just need some space. We'll give them space, and then we're ready to come back in, let them play. And that happens a lot more. It's a lot more common than people think. They're young boys, man. So like it's okay to cry. It gets emotional. I remember I used to cry. I didn't really take it serious, personal. Then number three is just have fun. This is it's the medicine game, and you play that. You play with all those three and have fun. Yeah, it'll take you a far away. It'll take you a long way. It'll give you a lot. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I want to say. So,
Thank you. Julia?
Yeah, I actually wanted to piggyback off of him about one of the points that he brought up is like playing with the clear mind. And hand game has taught me a lot with that. And it's most importantly has taught me to be a team player. Um, in hand game, you play on a team, and most of the time, well, every tribe plays differently. But Oklahoma style, we play on different teams that are consistent of a family. So my team is consisted of my family, my grandma, my grandpa, mom, aunties. And so really learning the strategy of reading different verbal cues and just relying on one another. We all play different roles. You know, somebody can be a medicine man, medicine woman, or the main guesser. And if there's one thing that my grandpa likes to say is that you win some, you lose some, and I think that's the most important thing because it can be very intense sometimes, and I think people often forget that, and that's part of life. You win some, you lose some, and it's not to carry those hard feelings with you. It's to enjoy the game, enjoy participating in that, and really playing with family or friends. That's what it's really about. And I remember when I would come home sometimes on spring break or just summer break, I would come for when the crows come down in November. And I remember my grandpa would always, he loves hand game, so that's actually how I got into it. And I remember kind of not wanting to go because it's an intimidating game. People like to throw medicine, people like to yell and shout, and that's just the name of the game. And it would often scare me a lot because like the opposing team was very intimidating, and I hated that for it. But after a while and years of playing, I grew to love it because it was just good sportsmanship and just like something to root for, and having to play with family was very special, and also learning the songs because some of these songs have been passed down from generation to generation, and there's different family songs. And if there's one lesson that I've learned recently is losing loved ones that you've played with, you hold on to the songs closer, and it kind of gives you a sense of um healing hearing those things. And while it's hard to hear those songs, like it brings me strength and healing, and I'm definitely thankful for that. And yeah, just playing with others is very important, and I think that has taught me a lot to strategize and yeah, just yeah, I think that's mostly what it's taught me. But yeah.
Thank you guys so much for talking more about that. I too understand what you two went through. I too went to a big college and decided to play lacrosse, and I called my mom. I was like, "Mom, you have to come get me right now." I was like, "I don't see anyone that looks like me." I was like, "Mom, I don't want to play lacrosse anymore." And like I got in so much trouble, but I totally understand. It's such a culture shock, and the only thing that keeps us going is holding on to those games, holding on to the lessons we were taught. But trust me, I was ready to go. First day I stepped foot onto that campus. And so I know that we're reaching the top of the hour, and I know that we're getting tons and tons of really great questions from our folks on the call. I wanted to point back to Jeremiah and Pete. There's a question in the chat that talks more about how does our teachings of our sports, our language, our culture, our traditions, how does that help with trauma-informed care? And have you seen that in your classroom, in your school, and even Angela and Julia, you guys too have a reach to kids, whether they're babies, they're kids, they're other students, your peers. So to everyone, how does sports, our games help with trauma-informed care? And have you seen that healing in younger people when they're playing our games?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I have about 150 high school students this year in at our tribal college, Oglala Lakota College. I had about 50 college students, and I taught all of them a lot about the games of our ancestors and how I feel about how it's helped with traumatic experiences is it's indefinite for sure. It helps with anything really. It's very therapeutic to play a traditional game. And hand game, probably we call it hump up at you. And there's two versions. There's a hump up at you and a hump up at you P. And hump up at you, we play the hand game, and then hump up at you P, we play the moccasin game. And with both of those games, even the Dakapsi Chana, which is our lacrosse game, there's the beautiful music, the frequency of the music touches the soul, is my belief. When we play, when we're feeling down and depressed or something, and can always tell, students will just say, hey, can we play some hand game, or can we play some, there's another game we have, it's called Kantasu, and it's like dice, and it's just meant for the females. We have games for males and females and social games for both. And then our Two-Spirit Nation, they can play anywhere. They can play whatever they want. And it's, I talk a lot about that too in the classroom, about this different societies. And that's like a whole nother conversation. But for me, what I see in these, when we play these games, it helps because of it's very therapeutic. You kind of just lose yourself in the game, and you're not really worried about what's going on in the outside world. And it's very, it helps a lot with activating our rebellious side, I think that some non-natives and who see the game from an observation perspective, they like to see that game and they want to try it and stuff, and they want to be a part of it. And so, like I said, my role is that education part. It's to us as Indigenous people, the games are not just games for us, because our ancestors fought so hard for us to have them today. That's part of our healing too. Not only learning how to play a traditional game, but also learning the historical significance of why it's still here is it helps healing and with traumatic experiences. And I'm very honored, and it's a huge honor to be able to teach my students these types of aspects of the game pertaining to healing and learning and trauma, because it's so delightful to see, even when there's an argument between somebody, two teams, two opponents or whatever, there's a lot of teachable moments that arise from coming from a teacher standpoint, where I can pause the game and say, hey, is this part of your Lakota values? Is this part of being Indian? Do we treat our relatives this way? No, come together as one, so we can talk or play or come together as a community. And that's most important to me, is coming together as a community. Whether that's another thing I think is healing about this game, or any game, any traditional game, is that two families that may have some sort of issue with each other, that dates back, who knows how far back, right? A game can bring two families that don't like each other, or two people who don't like each other, bring them together and have fun. So that's exciting. It's a beautiful moment. And when you look at the historical significance of the game, that's exactly what our ancestors did with these games. There's two enemy tribes who happen to come upon one another and scouting out new territories for hunting or foraging or water, and they have an issue. They didn't just go to war right then and there all the time. You I hear stories from elders that talk about enemy tribes coming together to play a game to settle the dispute on whose territory they're in or whatever. So it's just proud. I'm proud, honored, happy, and grateful to be a part of it. It's just a very beautiful thing, and thank the creator, spirits of creation every day that I'm able to be a part of it. And thank you, the honor. This is an honor to be talking about this in your space again. Once again, I hope.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Passing it over to Coach Pete.
Sure. And just to build upon our Lakota relatives' insight and philosophy, as sometimes it's taking a stepping out of a coach's role and stepping more into a relative or a mentor role. So it's important to remind ourselves that these are young men who I think Angela highlighted this. They're going through changes, and so the world is on their shoulders, and so during the season, I'll give cultural and spiritual, kind of insights and stuff like that. But I also remember to say, all right, let's reset our brains. Let's reset our thinking. Let's remind ourselves we all are on level playing field here. We all play under one team, not these club teams that we might play during the summer or fall ball or anything like that. We are united under one. And with the pressures of school, maybe something's troubling them at home, or maybe they're being picked on or something. I remind them for 2 hours out of the entire day that they can come here and enjoy themselves. And then 2 hours they can practice, they can be with teammates, they can joke, they can laugh. They can play like all stars during those times. And then that kind of brings them back to earth. Okay, all right. And it goes to Angelo and our Lakota relatives' insight is that when we start shifting our thinking, getting away from reactionary to forward thinking, that's an important development for a young player's lifestyle from there on out. One of what we say, and again, I love the guys that I worked with this past season. They wanted to learn a Creek word. And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, all right, what could I give him? Last year, my mom passed away before the first season I coached. And one of the words that we give families to kind of help remind ourselves, we say abiagis. That means forward or let's go. And it's not necessarily used just kind of, as we go through our grieving process. Is kind of, we say that in excitement. We say that, a lot of kids are going saying, let's go, all of that. That wording captures that attitude. And so again, my face-off guys, I had worked with 5 of them. One was native out of the in-group. They wanted, and that was a rallying call all season, and it was beautiful. I loved it. My dad laughed and thought it was hilarious. But you know, he saw how unified and how hardworking they are, and again, they took that concept and applied it. And so, as we start talking about team development, player development, and incorporating native thought and philosophy and theory, that was a big part of who we were this past season, and hopefully in the near future. So it's been a huge blessing to see that engagement.
Thank you. Julia and Angelo, do you have anything to add? No, I couldn't follow that either. I just wanted to just kind of stop and just thank you all for sharing. I know that these stories hold a lot to us. They bring up a lot of memories, a lot of love, a lot of family. And so I just want to just thank you all for allowing us to just have a small piece of you. There's so many pieces that make up of you, but I'm really appreciative that you're allowing us, all of us from all over Indian country to talk with you today. With the last 15 minutes, I wanted to know if there's any questions from those that are in our audience, any of our project directors that may want to ask a question or a scenario that's happening in your project, in your school. I know I see some OIE folks on the call as well. If there's anything that maybe you would like to bring forward as we're wrapping up and closing out this space, I encourage folks to kind of step forward and come off mute.
I just want to say thank you to you all of our guests. It's not easy to share your story. All of these, lacrosse and hand game, they're special. They're a part of us. They're a part of you, and sharing that part of you to a group of strangers we're all connected in some way. We all find one another. I'm here in DC. Whenever I see other Native people eating at dinner, I'll go over and we're like old friends. So we're all connected. And if any of our grantees, I know sometimes we have difficulty getting into school spaces, public school spaces, and sharing our culture, our tradition. And so we can help our kids, help our kiddos with and learning, like Angelo and Julia were saying, it's when they did have that piece of their culture and their traditions back, it was healing. I grew up around mine my entire life and took it for granted. I sometimes still do, but now that I'm here in DC and I go home, those are healing. That's it. It heals me from head to toe, heart, soul, everything. So I can come back in this space and fight for our people. But if any of you all out there have any questions, and I know you all work really hard in your spaces to get our languages, these guys shared some amazing games, our traditional games to share in your spaces. But I just want to say thank you all for being here. Negaka Thesni from the bottom of my heart. And I appreciate you all. And our grantees as well. Thank you guys for showing up. I know you're tired and you didn't want to come today because you just finished that APR and you're like, what do these guys want now? But that's why we wanted to give you something strong to go off into the summer with, so you feel strong and rejuvenated to come back in August and do it all over again.
Awesome. A question did come in through my Zoom, and it's asking, have any of you have any of you on the call experienced like barriers or hesitations in introducing and trying to incorporate these games into either it's the classroom, a nonprofit, your university, your research, or just your teachings. They're asking how can folks that are trying to incorporate this into the schools, whether it's not native or non-native kids, have you had those forces pushing against you? And if so, how can they overcome it and or get their tribes involved?
I would say that's probably like one thing that we're struggling with as well. Um, Being in like the Rapid City school system, I would talk to the athletic directors. I think that's their title. And the way they made it sound like it kind of made it sound like it was like impossible. It wasn't really like encouraging or like wanting to try. It was like it's kind of like an instant shutdown. Um, with the reservations and stuff, we're I feel like that's a lot easier. There was actually a lot more talk. I think Lexi, would you be able to talk about how they're thinking about taking it to L&I?
So we put in a proposal to me, Toshka here, Angelo, and another one of our relatives, Travis and Jim Red Eagle, Red Owl, and um, Kevin Decora, and we put a proposal in because we have a Lakota Nation invitation here that was started in 1970, 79 and 80. And what it is see, when our reservation school students would play basketball all through the 60s and 70s, we were not treated fairly by the refs, by the communities that were non-native, and by the schools and the coaches and the players of these non-native communities around our reservations. And so as a people, one of my older society brothers, Brian Brewer, brought a lot of our people together and said, well, let's create a tournament on the off season of the games that are being played, and invite everyone, even the non-native schools, and we'll have our own referees, we'll have our own everything. And so they started playing basketball in this tournament. And the first couple years, it was non-native teams who won, because it was very difficult for us to find native referees. And so when we started getting, so there was a lot of difficult, it was a difficult process to find individuals that were willing to go through the certifications to get, but we did it. We adapted it. We understood what needed to happen. And then there was a push, and we had one non-native and one native referee, and then there was like a tiebreaker. So each game would alternate the third referee, native, non-native, and so on. And so now it's very common for a native team to win the tournament, and a lot of times a native team will go all the way to state. You know, for a long time, there was hardly ever a native team that would win the state championship in the division, because of most of the reservation schools were not very populated. You know, we come from these rural communities, and it's very difficult to compete sometimes. And then sometimes, you know, we just get incredible players and athletes that will rise to the occasion. And so through LNI in the late 80s, my Tioshpai, Wilmer Mestith, and Philomene Lakota, Francis Chubbs, Thunderhawk, we all came, my aunties and uncles and grandmas and grandpas came together, and they had an exhibition at LNI and played hand game. And during their exhibition, it was so moving and so powerful that the following year in 1990, the following years, they had exhibitions every year all the way up until 1998 is when they first had the first hand game competition at LNI. And so all the reservation schools had a team in LNI and played hand game. And Oglala, the Loneman School, was the first ones to win. And since then, every year it's the same. They have a hand game and then they have a basketball. And now it's grown to now there's a knowledge bowl and a language bowl, a Lakota language bowl. And it's a huge ordeal in December here in Rapid City, and LNI is Lakota Nation Invitation. It's a big event and it brings in a lot of economical, financial monies to the city, which aren't being acknowledged by the city council. But anyway, that's for another Zoom. But it's very powerful to see that our young people in the Lakota Nation Invitation, and what we want to see is Dakapsichana, our traditional lacrosse game in LNI. And so we've been going through the proper channels and proposing that this happens, even at a small scale, and it don't have to be at the same time. We gave them options, when can we do this as an exhibition or whatever. And each year that we keep proposing, it seems like they get a little bit more intrigued, but it hasn't happened yet, but it will. And so that's just to touch base on a little bit about what Toshka is talking about, LNI and our Dakapsichana traditional lacrosse game in our community. Ho.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. For those that are around the South Dakota area, even if not, I highly encourage you to buckle up your family this December and do a road trip to LNI. It will literally change your life. You might lose your voice in the stands, but I guarantee you guys to do it. And as we're wrapping up, I ask our presenters. So, as you know, there's a lot of folks here on the call. There's educators, there's folks here that are trying to make tons of leeway and retaining our teachers, retaining Native teachers, shaping our Native teachers in our communities. From your own professional and personal standpoint, is there any piece of advice, encouragement, love that you can part on them as we're wrapping up today, as they are trying to shape the narrative of not having enough Native teachers or not having the support to retain our teachers? Because everyone here today, like I said, our goal is to keep our teachers in our classrooms for our kids. And so if there's any advice, any words of encouragement, we ask that, you just lay them down and leave them here in the space so our project directors can go on and do really well this summer and gear up for their next grant year.
Yeah, I actually wanted to speak about that. Growing up, I've mentioned that I was in military family, so I moved every 2 to 3 years. I never had a Native teacher until I went to the University of Oklahoma, my freshman year, Tony Satoke, and that was very special to me. So having Native role models, having Native teachers, it's very important, especially because my family was brought up in boarding schools, my great-grandparents, so a lot of the practices of culture and language, it was frowned upon. They were forced not to speak it. And so when you have generations that were brought up in that way of not knowing knowledge and culture, it's hard to get back into it. And one of those ways is having Native teachers. And incorporating language and culture in my hand game can be a very powerful way to enhance cultural enhancement and language revitalization. And one fun fact I like to bring up is that the American Sign Language is actually derived from the Plains Hands Talk. And that's kind of how hand game was originated. Most of the time you play and it's playing with your hands, so there's no need to talk. The reason for this was because many tribes spoke different languages, so hand talk was our universal language back in the day, and it was also helpful for the hard hearing, so it was inclusive in that way. But it encourages the use of these old ways of culture and language, and Indian Plains hand talk, which we used to do before. So it's that connection to with our ancestors, and it just, in a way, promotes learning about our culture and healing. And again, it's very important to have Native role models. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last words from Angelo, Pete, or Jeremiah before we close out for the day?
One of the things I would just chime in with is, one of the core principles of Muskogee life is Analgechka means to love. And so love can look like many different things. And, when when we play the sport, some of my players are their Jinx football is really big here in the state. And so they're kind of expecting that hard, gritty coaching in your face, might drop a F-bomb here and there and da 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 da. That's what they're used to. Our game is not like that. And our game isn't meant to be that way. And so, I would continue to say, be yourself, represent where you're from, your cultural protocols, your information, your family, your history. And players and students and scholars will definitely pick up on that and definitely look at you in a different light, because it's too easy. Again, young minds are struggling with development, with physical development, with a lot of things. And the last thing I'm trying to do as a coach, as a mentor, is add a double burger of, criticisms and hardcore coaching and things like that. And so, beginning with the goal and the student in mind, continue to do that. All educators are doing great jobs. We have a mountain of work, but together we win. Want to personally express my gratitude to Doris for the invitation and share space with everyone here with our philosophy and theories. And I'd be happy to make any connections after we get through here. Be happy to share my information. And shout out to my fellow coach, Lakota relative up north. Keep doing what you're doing. All right, Mado.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I think everything is pretty much said from Julia and Pete. It's kind of off topic, but we actually, when we were playing when I was in high school, we had a lacrosse team called Seven Flames Lacrosse. And we're one of the 3 teams that got kicked out of the South Dakota League due to racism. And so during the summer, I think it was like last year around this time, we actually went down and played Jinx High School in Tulsa, which is kind of crazy, small, the Native world is small. Pete, were you there?
I presented the coach with a set of ball sticks from our tribe and spoke to the team a little bit about the medicine game and what it meant for the team to come down here and share space and time and energy in the world, because that's what our game is. It's our place in the world.
Yeah, they took very care of us. The hospitality was great. Um, Fed us, paid for our travel. It was a good experience, kind of, I don't know. When he said Jinx Lacrosse, I was like, oh wow. But yeah, thank you, Pete. And so Jeremiah, do you remember? So was it Jeremiah that you presented those sticks to, or was it Cody?
Not off the top of my head, but I do remember he had a bald head.
Oh yeah, that's Cody.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Cody. All right.
So we never got those sticks. He took them and had it out. But anyway, yeah.
Well, we'll get you another pair sometime down the road here soon.
Awesome. Yeah, and then like Pete said again, I can leave my contact info as well. I can send it to Doris, and she can send it out to everyone. And if anyone has any questions, or if they need some advice, or it might be the opposite too. I might need some advice or ask questions. So yeah, thank you. Pilamielo.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Donna, would you like to close us out here today?
Again, just thank you all for being here and being a part of this space. I appreciate you all again. So, Nika Katesni, Howie, thank you.